say the words and I'll go. Let's just keep it simple. Anywhere the wind blows, I'll be high as windows for your love. I feel like I'm flying. I'm 40 feet up. You take me higher, you take me higher, you take me higher, love. And I'm tripping. And I'm tripping. And I'm tripping. You're like
Initiating at the hips, but obviously we can see there's a lot more knee bend. Big emphasis on making sure that we're keeping that chest vertical here as well. You can also use the arms out. That can be a good cue to keep the chest up, also as a counterbalance. Again, we're also looking at those knees tracking out as well. Cool. So this one, big compound movement. We're starting to incorporate some overhead pressing here now, but we're using the power from the squat to get those dumbbells up overhead here. So you can see as Jono descends into his squat, using the power from his hips to thrust those dumbbells up overhead. Cool.
Is, like you also have to consider like what's next after, your NeuroHAB or like your rehabilitation with your patients is, also making sure that, your EPs, and I'm sure you probably all do already, but having that knowledge of like how you're going to build their capacity and how like this movement transfers, because, when it comes to capacity building, our hinge and our squat is our base foundation, but it's not going to look exactly like that. We're going to progress to things like kettlebells, barbells. We'll look at movements with squatting in a second where, it may look a little different, but that base foundation and points of performance still holds true to the movement when completing it. So this first one, looking here in our hinging, we're going to have 3 stations, is just a kettlebell deadlift. Okay. Joe still maintains those points of performance. We'll kind of see it a bit more in the barbell in a second if you rest there, Joe. But you'll notice, especially when we look at the barbell deadlift, there isn't going to be, necessarily a completely vertical shin, because now we are closer to the floor. We are moving something that's heavier, so we need to be able to set up in the ideal position for our levers and be optimal to drive that load from the floor to the hips. So sets up, and then from here, still maintains those points of performance, all right? And I think actually someone asked before a question about the hinge in terms of like the chest leading the movement. I think this is a good opportunity to touch on it, is that when we're looking at a hinge or something like a deadlifting movement, if you have a rest there, Joe, for a second, is that, I hear it all the time, it's like, oh, I'm doing deadlifts, it's back day. But when you look at a deadlift or a hinging movement, it is a leg-dominated movement. So when Jo sets up, her relationship between her hips and her back stay the same the whole time, and it's the legs that are driving that movement from the floor, and at the top, the hips open up. And we finally look at the box. So this is more of our, real world work, life kind of application, is like, how are we going to best set up to pick up the box, It might be a little lighter where you can just hinge over and get around it, whereas it could be maybe heavier where you have to take that wider stance and, change the angle in which you grab it. That's going to be on, how you teach your patients and the people in front of you to best attack what's in front of them. Thinking about like a Friggy where they're having to change like aircon units in someone's roof. So we want to be able to give them the knowledge that everything outside of those small opportunities where they can't be perfect, that they are doing it there. So then when they hit those moments, they can, perform or do what they need to do. Yeah. So what we're going to do, pretty much in a kind of waterfall style, like we did at the start, we're going to go through these 3 stations. What you're going to do, we'll start off with Greg here since he's at the front of the line, but you're just going to do 3 repetitions of each one. So you do 3 here.
So your knees are traveling forward a little bit. So the first thing we'll do is, I'm not going to get you to lift it the next time, I'm just going to get you to tap it and stand back for me and think about that bottom rib bone. Alright. What I was just deciding then is whether we needed a riser, so just checking, assessing range, that if the knees were coming forward purely because he just didn't have the knowledge of that. So you stay in that vertical chin, but you kept a pretty vertical chin the next time. Cool.
Over here. Yeah. Yep. And coming down, and then pause for a second. So this is more noticeable now with the barbell, but what we could have done with the kettlebell as well is actually get closer. So if you actually get close to the barbell and have that barbell right over the middle of your foot, and then shuffle those feet in under those hips a bit more. Yeah, and then let's go again. And then up. Let's come back down. And we do it one more time, and you're just going to raise your hips a little bit before you lift. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and now go. Yeah, and then down. Let's do that one more time, and we'll move to the box. Yeah. Does that feel a bit different? Yeah. Different. So I think just like the main thing is like thinking about how close you are to the object as well. You know, especially when we come to capacity building. Yeah. The further away we are from the object and we're trying to lift weight, you know, it's going to be harder, right? If you're trying to lift weight from back here, like it's going to be so much harder than if it's like right over like the center of your gravity or center of mass. Yeah.
And if my butt's up, then my hammies are engaged.
Exactly. Yeah. We want that in between. For a deadlift, the only reason the knees are forward is because we need that extra range to the floor. Yeah. So we just make sure that we give ourselves enough leverage forward. Yeah. And again, is that lever length. Some people are going to have vertical shins in the bottom of their deadlift because their levers for their legs and their torso is going to be much different. But you're a bit taller, so you know you need that bit of extra here. But as soon as we start to come up, those knees shift back and we're in that vertical position. Right. Hips open. So that was good. Cool. Yeah. A plus. All right. So let's go 3 here. Yeah.
Obviously, in this circumstance, you can't control it. Some circumstances you can't. So whenever you can control the circumstance, you want to try and position yourself over the body.
That's it. And then before you go in this next one, just tuck your head a little bit, and then let your body just follow it from there. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go one more time. That's it. And then just pull those armpits back towards your hips a bit more. Yeah. And now let's go. Yeah. And duck down. Nice. Really good. Cool, that was good. Yeah, just think that like that head position, like we don't want to be like at the bottom, like driving out, head up. We just want to be like slightly looking on the horizon.
So the head's just going to follow.
Yeah, so like your head's going to be fixed at the start and it's just to follow your body. So, you know, if you find like a point like that rig pole, look at that rig pole and then just as you stand up, your eyes are just going to follow that and your head's just going to naturally sit in place at the top.
And the shoulder just naturally...
You just think, yeah, like down here, we just think that's going to activate our lats. So our lats are going to help keep that bar engaged. Okay. So if we're not tight here, then as we pick that bar up,
around and then you lose the position.
So we just keep that tension in here. Think not necessarily like shoulder blades together, but you're pulling. If you come down here, like this, and drive your hands back towards your hip pocket, and that's going to get that part engaged. Not shrugging. You're not shrugging. You're imagine like you had this breaking the bar apart as well. You want to activate the sides here.
Okay. So like,
pull back towards this way. Yeah.
Well, do one more.
Do one more, yeah.
So when you say...
pull this towards your hip.
Like that?
Yeah, you don't want to shrug because we're not using our traps or our rhomboids. We're using our lats. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Nice. That's it. Yeah, set in. Nice. And then back down. And you're just going to keep that load a little closer to you on the way down if we do one more. So as that bar's going down, don't let it travel away from you. You're just going to keep it like gliding down the body.
What we also did really well there is that hip hinge as well. So, if anything, I'd say we just tried to...
Yeah, and have a rest there.
We went slowly getting more functional as you get along, but the exact same sort of breaths.
So, and then coming down. Not too bad. All I'm going to need you to do from this bottom position here is just think about pushing your knees back. Yeah. So kind of set up. I want you to push your knees back slightly. Yeah. And we'll come down. And then we're going to find that same position. So knees back slightly. Don't lift it just yet. And then kind of lift your chest up a little bit as well. That's it. And let's drive up. Nice. Down. That's it. We got one more. You're going to let those hips come up a little bit. Try to... Yeah, it's a bit better. Do you feel like there's tension in your hamstrings at the start? Yeah. Yeah.
I've had to work really hard to get to relax.
Yeah.
I was overturned this one, so I think I'm doing it, but not.
That was better. The last two. I think something that could be like helpful, like especially like if you tend to like come to the bottom and have that like excessive knee draft forward is like actually think about hip hinging to the bar first. Like, you know, when I deadlift, I think like long arms to the floor, hinge down, then like lock the body in. Just, yeah, exactly. So that little difference there. Yeah. And then come down, we'll go one more. And I'm actually going to do now is come down, we're going to stay up in the same position. I want you to look just not all the way up, but slightly forward, yeah. Yeah, that's better, yeah. So like when we're doing that deadlift, like, especially like, obviously right now it's 25 kilos, so I guess it doesn't feel challenging at all, right?
I think the depth.
The depth is like you're tall, like what, 6'5", 6'4"? Yeah.
It's still
Your bottom position actually looks pretty good, but all I would do, we're going to do 2 more. Okay. What I want you to do is on these next 2 is that like when you get set is actually just think about keeping that bar close to the body. Like at this position here, as you get past the knee, this upper back or middle back should be working hard to keep that bar close.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
The bar closer.
Yeah.
Still want to be using that hinge just like I would have done deadlifting the barbell to hinge over, get that hips into rotation.
That's it. Yeah, that's better. Nice. And then as you get past the knee, really think about on the way up on this next one, like drawing that knee back as you get past. Yeah. Cool. I'm going to finish off with one more.
And the same way with the thing on the way down, reverse that movement, start with the hinge, and then when I kind of lost balance.
That's all right.
So it goes from looking like more.
Yeah.
So that's the proper way instead of going like.
Nice. Better.
Alrighty guys, so we might just bring it back in. So we can see there that when she's anteriorly and posteriorly tilting, we can see then that lumbar flexion or hyperextension there. So again, we don't want to be promoting those positions because then we're coming out of that neutral spine. And when we're doing that, then it's putting a lot of excess forces and loads, stresses and strains through those discs. So we can use a fishbowl analogy here. So we don't want to be tipping the water out the front, we don't want to be tipping the water out the back, but we want to find that middle common ground there, again referred to as the neutral spine. So that does become important when we then progress this movement. So a progression, as you guys probably did experience there, was obviously lowering the height of the box. So increasing that range of motion. Again, we still want to make sure that those same biomechanics are there. They're still maintaining the neutral spine, still initiating at the hips, but obviously you'll bend your knees a lot more to be able to reach or sit down to that surface, stand up from that surface. One other thing that I just wanted to address there as well was also the knees. So again, saw a couple of knees caving in when doing the squat. So again, by driving those knees out as well, that's also going to help with those biomechanics and being efficient through that posterior chain driving the movement here. Yep, cool. And we can see that we're still engaging, utilizing that posterior chain. We're not letting the heels come off the ground, which is what was shown in this picture here, and then obviously they're knee loading, so they're breaking, those rules, those 5 points of performance there, disengaging that posterior chain. So again, that's the relevance of starting with that sit to stand, and obviously very important in day-to-day life, but then progressing it to useful techniques to pick up objects and can also be an athletic movement as well when we look at the squat.
So when we're looking at a hip hinge, Dave's probably touched on it quite a bit already, but where hip hinge and our squatting pattern and how like the points of performance relate here, we're setting up our foundation for everyday life. How people move at home, work, interpersonal activities, hobbies. We're creating that foundation for, and something that Joe always likes to coin is like that sport of life, right? Everyone has different goals, but at the end of the day, we all have a life and we want to be able to live it to the best of our ability. And when we have patients coming through here, everyone's goals are just to be able to engage in the things that they are involved with day to day, whether that's their family, their work, those hobbies. So in terms of our points of performance, we'll kind of run through. So when looking at our hip hinge and, introducing the stick or the PVC, we want 3 points of contact. So we're looking for a point of contact at the head, one at the thoracic spine, and then one at the sacrum. So there are most important three. You know, you are going to come across patients that do have that, you know, more aggressive kyphotic structure. So if that is the case, we just look for the bottom two, so between the shoulder blades and the sacrum. All right, just getting them to fix their head in, you know, a comfortable neutral position. From here, we have that hip-centric rotation. So, you know, imagining trying to drive, you know, a door shut or push your hips towards the wall as they perform that hip hinge, as Cord and Joe do that now. From there, you know, talking about that strong structure. So we, you know, by using the hips, we are engaging that posterior chain. Okay, so all those muscles from, you all know, pretty much the top back of our head all the way down to our feet. From there, unloaded knees. You know, this is going to be context dependent, but when we're looking at the hinge, we do want to keep that, you know, vertical shin and keep that engagement through our glutes, our hamstrings, all those spinorectal muscles. And then finally, if they stand up, you know, Joe and Cord are going to have very different ranges of motion, right? And that's the big. So what we're going to look at is just like common errors and cues that we come across just in terms of the group program and seeing patients. So I'll just get Joe to kind of demonstrate this like with our water bottle. So coming down, Joe's going to try and pick up the water bowl. Common one is just the dropping of the shoulders. So making sure that they are, you know, proud chest, looking on the horizon, you know, pulling those shoulder blades back and down. From there, you can think about just that, losing that bottom point of contact. So them kind of moving through the lumbar spine rather than moving their hips back towards to close that, you know, let's say a car door or a door inside that office. Okay. From here, looking at our knees is very common. So kind of three areas. First, we just have that knee flexion. So again, not really utilizing the hips. Don't mind the cracks. All right, so from here, just thinking about, you know, I find with the knees and Cord herself, tactile cues are very helpful, especially when you're coming across patients who don't really know how to maybe move their bodies that well. So just giving them some feedback to, you know, as Joe goes down, that hand in front of the knee. You can even get something like a box, place it behind so they have some sensation for their calves to drive against as they go down to utilize that hinge. Other ones, knees driving inward, same thing, using a tactile cue for them to just get that knee out and then just thinking about that knee over the inline of the toe and then the straight legs. So, you know, maybe pushing all their weight into the heels and not having that full foot pressure. And then same thing, just getting that tactile cue of a slight bend of the knees. All right, it's not, again, not supposed to be complicated. I think with cueing, my experience is definitely just realizing that when you have a group program especially, the way you say something in the moment, everyone says that they understand you, but when they start to move, you can tell that, you know, people are processing information differently. People's backgrounds, you know, we get people who come from, you know, doing CrossFit or are quite athletic to people who haven't exercised in like 20 years. So just being able to make sure that you can, even though you have a base foundation of cues, that you can change up what you're saying to someone in the moment and understanding that their individual experiences are going to like just be so different to everyone else in the room. So making sure that you can, you know, be ready to regress. You know what Dave said, like regression doesn't mean that you're not chasing virtuosity in movement. Still chasing, you know, perfection of movement. It's just going to look different for everyone in terms of where they are at in their, you know, their journey with back pain and, you know, moving towards functional movement.
So we're going to have a look at two different surfaces here. So obviously we've got a chair, we've got a box here. So the setup for the movement, feet are going to be shoulder width apart. Toes are slightly externally rotated there. And we're initiating the movement at the hips. So they're starting by pushing their hips back and then bending the knees to sit down to the surface. To stand up, they're going to push their hips back, drive through the heels to stand tall. So we can also see here as well, as they're going to sit down and stand up, they're keeping those knees out. Cool. So again, this is really important that we're active when we're doing this movement because quite commonly we'll see people just slump into their, you know, office chair or couch or any kind of surface really that they're trying to sit to. And again, that just creates unnecessary force through the spine and then also loads other structures as well. So we'll go through those faults now and we'll have a look at that. So first one, well, let's look at the plonk. Yep, cool, we've all seen it. Next one we'll look at is scooping. So when someone's going to stand up, scooping, really loading those knees excessively forward there. Another one we'll look at is the knees collapsing inwards, or that knee valgus. Yeah. And the other one is then driving through the toes to stand up. Yeah, cool.
Hey everyone, Alan here from Rehab and Strength Lab, exercise physiologist in Sydney. Hope everyone is well and about to enjoy a fantastic weekend of learning ahead. Just wanted to share a little bit about my journey and the connection to the Functional Movement Training Centre and the rest of the team there. First off the bat, I'd like to say big thanks to everybody there, because the support that they've given me since I've left uni in 2022 has been unbelievable, and it's been a fantastic learning experience. I felt when I left uni in 22, I wasn't really equipped to deal with a lot of the lower lumbar cases, and I was very fortunate to come across Dr. Johnson and the team. And one of my other mentors, Dr. Andrew Locke, who passed me in the direction of the guys, said, you're going to learn a lot here, so take a lot from it and add all of this stuff into your toolbox, and which I have and I continue to do. I'm always learning, trying to get better, but you're going to learn a huge amount. Now, what you will learn, and one of the key learnings for me over the last few years, is restoring the movement fundamentals is key to a person's rehabilitation. If we try and skip the step, or we make a person's rehabilitation too complex with strength-based work, we're missing a step. We've got to build in the movement fundamentals in a person's capacity in order to do the activities of daily living, or perform on a sports field, or complete the training to a degree that they want to complete their training as well. So without that key step of building a person's capacity and building the fundamental movements, or restoring them back into their day-to-day and into their training regimens, rehab is more than likely going to fail. That was a massive learning for me. So listen up over the weekend. Also want to say a massive thank you to Dr. Johnson and the team for making the time to jump on calls, being available online, and helped me with consults with patients as well down through the years so far. It's been absolutely fantastic. The patients have gotten so much out of it, and I appreciate it. So guys, build up your network, keep asking the question, keep the lines of communication open, and feel free to reach out to anyone to get that help. We're all in it together, we're all trying to learn, so I'm delighted that you're there. And take it all in, and I'll be due a trip back up to Brizzy soon. And if you get a chance to train with the doc, do it, but make sure you might need a day off work the day after. He's a bit of a weapon, so get involved, all right?